Yes, welcome, Irina, once again. Congratulations. Well, I think that you had winning chances yesterday as well. So what a start, 2.5 out of 3. Well, I wouldn't call you an underdog, of course, but I think that all the US fans are chanting out there. So
yeah, hopefully I'm making my fans happy.
So let's have a look at the game. Can you share a little bit, well, some secrets of your preparation? Why did you start with this line?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I mean, I think her triangle Slav was a very logical idea for her. But the thing is that, I mean, it wasn't necessarily the most obvious thing that she could do, right? It was just kind of like a logical idea. The thing is, though, that I thought about that too, right? Because it's so logical that, I thought, she might do that, avoiding the exchange Slav, for example. And yeah, I went for the Marshall Gambit. This is something I've kind of had a liking for a very long time. Back when I was like a teenager, 20 years ago, and I was studying these lines, I mean, I kind of went through all the gambits, the Marshall Gambit, the Geller Gambit, like the anti-Moscow variation of the Botvinnik. So basically, I mean, I kind of feel like when black doesn't control the e4 square, it kind of makes sense to try to play in the maximally aggressive way.
So what did you expect? What was the end of your preparation? Was this somewhere here?
I mean, basically, queen a3, knight c5, bishop d4. Like, I knew this idea because it's actually far from an obvious idea. Like, the idea to go bishop d4, just trade on c5 and claim some sort of an edge in the end game because of your better pawn structure is certainly, it's not the most obvious thing unless the computer shows you.
And also maybe a very unpleasant choice for your opponent because you deprived her for any, she didn't have dynamic play at all.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, Nana definitely thrives in more like aggressive positions. And so I mean, I wasn't sure how much there was in this endgame. I feel like for me, the big decision was trading off all the rooks, right? Like, I don't know. It took me a while to come up with this. I don't know how good it is, but I kind of felt like it worked out quite well. Yeah, because after bishop c8, I was like, okay, what do I really have here, right? She's going to go knight d4, pawn e5, and so I went for this trade of everything, which is definitely not like meant to be a draw offer. I mean, I expected to be pushing in this position. In a way, it like removes even more of the dynamic possibilities for black. So now you're like completely in a two-result game. I mean, white can't really mess this up unless they just fall asleep or leave the board. But I thought like it's unpleasant to play against the outside pawn majority. I would never want to be black in this position,
It's a funny fact because I said that you shouldn't trade all the rooks and you have to keep one.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I just think, yeah, it was not an obvious decision, but I felt like, because if you're going to be pushing your queenside pawns, right, the more rooks there are, it's also the trickier it is to push those queenside pawns.
I thought that maybe, yes, g5 was a better move in this position. Just wait and see. So were you planning on playing b4 like you did in the game?
Yeah, I mean, just the general plan, king d2, b4. I mean, the thing is like, yeah, the black has to really feel the subtleties here, right? Like for white, again, it's much easier to play. I mean, I thought she played logically, but then there were a couple of things that I did that I thought were interesting, like this move g4. I mean, so in this game, I did some, funny things with the pawns because I wound up putting all of them on light squares, even though I'm the one with the, light squared bishop. So I'm kind of like breaking the rules. But I was like, oh, this is very interesting because I can fight for the e4 square, right? So there were definitely some paradoxical things going on with the pawn placements in this game. And this was one of those decisions. Here I was feeling like pretty good about my position.
f5 and h3.
Yeah, that was another one. I mean, I didn't know. Of course, taking on f5 was tempting. But then I decided to like not activate that bishop for a while. I see the engine doesn't really like my choice, but in the game I was like, I was pretty happy with it.
Well, the engine is not always right, so let's have a look at the most critical moments of this game. c5.
It was amazing that to me, I was amazed that I was not like winning this end game. I mean, after c5, b5, you think like those A and B pawns should be really dangerous, but then I realized, okay, it's actually not so simple.
Yes, and then actually that was where I told our audience that there is a way to lose this endgame, and I wanted to illustrate it in a very simple way because you can play, let's say, e4.
Wow. I'm amazed. Like you can allow them to take an f5 and play bishop g4, and like black is still holding that. Like that's just not obvious at all.
Of course, it's not obvious to a human mind. So I said, what's more natural than centralize your king?
Yeah.
And here you are. You take, and then you play a6.
Yeah.
And it means that you always had to watch out for these ideas. So I think that your opponent forgot. She simply lost concentration.
But also, I didn't realize it until like I really started thinking, because again, a6 is so counterintuitive. You're putting yet another pawn on the light square. But like I was like, oh wow, she's giving me this opportunity to come into e4. And here, okay, here we were. So yeah, this position, I was getting a little disappointed because I realized that basically I thought her holding plan was like, let's say, oh, we can go one more move, king e3. Let's say, well, yeah, I don't know. She had these options of going h5, but like even bishop f7, right? And so yeah, I thought she would just kind of go back to g6 after bishop e2. Yes. And then the point is that every time I go bishop d3, she just moves her bishop away, and I never have king e4. And this was like the big, realization of this endgame, that I cannot actually use the e4 square with my king. So like, how do I break through,
This was probably the way for black to hold, because we tried this variation, let's say bishop h5, king g3, but then the king has to stay close.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was going to be a disappointing thing for me to swallow, that like my a5, b5 pawns were not going to win me the game.
And so tell me, what did you feel right here when you saw the move king
so
d6?
I was surprised by king d6 just because I thought the king was good on c7, and I thought she could just hold using her bishop. But I didn't immediately like know what was wrong with it, right? So then eventually like this a6 idea came to me, and I was just like, wow, it seems to work in all the lines. Like her king just has to go back, my king breaks through, and that's kind of it.
So a6 is the winning move, and well, the rest is history. There is a very important king march, and h4 just
finally improving my pawns a little bit.
Seals the deal. So, Irina, how do you feel now? Do you realize that you're leading the tournament?
Well, no, I'm feeling good. I feel good about this game. I feel like, well, I'm trying to play aggressively. It's funny that all three of my games, despite very different openings, kind of aggressive openings, they've all gone into the end game pretty quickly, right? So that's just an interesting thing. But yeah, no, I'm feeling overall that I'm playing decently, so I just want to keep that up.
And how important it is for you, once again, to be a role model. You are playing on American soil, and well, a lot of young players are looking up to you.
Yeah. Well, I definitely like to make happy the people who root for me. Like my students, my fans, like my friends, my family, like there's a lot of categories of people that I try to make happy with my play.
Thank you. So you should continue.
Thank you.
Our congratulations, Irina. Very, very nice. As Irina Krush